Hey guys and girls, I'll turn on my lamp so you can get a better view of that. Hey, I'm going to look through my notebook with you, and this will be a review. We're talking about our engineering design process and honestly, what the expectations are here. We're going to talk a little bit about the engineering process and what's going forward with your first project this quarter. So, hey, bear with me, watch through this, pay attention, please, and we'll sort this stuff out. So first off, real simple. I've got my notebook here. Our notebook should be one of our go-tos at all times. My notebook in this case is just a regular notebook. I don't care if yours is a sketchbook like this is. I don't care if it's a composition book. I don't care if it's a loose leaf folder, honestly. The important part is you're keeping the records. You're using the design process. You're using it to help you develop your skills so that when you're designing, your life gets a little easier. Now, right now, we're working on your student invention design. We talked about it at the very first of the semester. We've come back around to it, so now you start designing. So let's review the engineering design process. This is where I start with all my stuff. I literally start with identify the problem. As it says in the description for the course, no one understands this better than somebody has to deal with a problem. So if they have to deal with the problem, they know what the conflicts are. They know what the challenges are. So as I'm looking at this, I want you to look and say, okay, what challenges do I have as a student? What simple mechanical device could make this a lot easier? Honestly, I'm not worried about, is it something that's perfect for a class tool? It might be something to like protects your ear pods or protects your cell phone or files it away or props it up or organizes your bag. There's all kinds of possibilities here. So as I'm looking at that, I'm looking to identify the problem. I'm going to brainstorm and research that next stop right there. So I identify the problem. And what I'm going to do is once I identify a problem, I start some research, see what somebody else has done, and I start brainstorming possible solutions if I don't like what they have done. So these first three pieces here, these two can almost be combined together. That's why they're color-coded green in my book. But honestly, if I'm brainstorming and researching, I'm seeing what others have done. I'm seeing what's going on out there. Now, some courses will start throwing out the design thinking process. It's very similar. It's not exactly the same. And they empathize first. Well, that's them trying to come up with identifying the problem. It's the same concept, different approach. Okay. So they interview, they shadow people that have dealt with the problem. They figure out what's going on there. And that's part of their research phase as well. They completely define the problem. Absolutely completely define the problem. So we define, okay, what do I really need to address this? So these are the things we want to worry about right now. So as I'm doing this, I'm only working in the identify and research and brainstorm portions of our loop here. So as you're working through that now, things to remember. We're going to use mechanical principles. So literally we use third angle projection, not first angle. We're going to draw your parts out, sketch them out so we have the basics of multi-view projection going on here. I don't care if you draw them isometrically, honestly. But whatever works for you, take notes, pay attention to your line types. These are my notes on that. Lettering, yeah, use your lettering effectively. This is a problem. See the red lines? That's where things go badly. So pay attention, work on your lettering, keep it neat and tidy. You'll notice mine isn't perfect. Mine is in my notebook, but it's easily read. Somebody can pick my notebook up and take off from it. I remember my geometry as I do this. I know how things align together. I know how things will align together. I know how they're going to link up. I will keep some basic math principles in mind. Area is important. Volume is important. Literally, how much space do you have in a backpack? How much space do you have in an average school bag? Well, if you measure it, you don't have to do the area or the volume calcs. But if you know it's small enough to fit in there, that's important to know. Things that are ideas. Now, these are some of the ideas we threw out earlier. Brainstorming session, a phone stand or a pen or pencil case, a bag or backpack hook, removable book tabs, textbook marking guides, AirPod, these are some of the things we threw out, and we threw out some ideas and we sketched out. Now I'm going to figure out, like, this is fabric. If I'm going to do a soft-sided pen case, it's going to be fabric. So I'm looking at it going, okay, so how do I hold this close? Well, I got to figure out, do I put a little metal plate inside a pocket and then a little like neodymium magnet in another pocket and stitch one in here and one in over here and link them together? Do I have to put stitching down? Well, if I stitch down one way, do I have to stitch back? Do I want a frayed edge there? These are things that we think about. And if we don't know the answers, absolutely consult somebody. Okay. So as you're brainstorming through that process, you think it through. Now, honestly, if there's things related to that, I use some different pens. I took some measurements off my different pens and worked off that idea. So it's basically going to set it up so that I can have numbers so that I don't have problems with, oh, these kind of pens don't fit. So I look at what's normally going to go into mine and what's the project, okay? And then I look through it. So as you're building your stuff, when we'll go to CAD applications eventually, we do parametric design because we use Inventor, and you can use SolidWorks. You can use, honestly, you can use SketchUp. You can use the online version of SketchUp. But you can make the design and work it out that way. So AutoCAD industry standards is what I usually use for 2D. 3D, I use any of those above. MicroStation, yeah, I'm not a big fan of MicroStation. I've used it. I've used actually all of these. But we want to know what the parts are, how they relate to assemblies and presentations, and how all that comes together in a drawing sheet. This is what parametric design boils down to. We model all the parts, we take all the parts, we assemble them, we take the assemblies, we make a presentation or exploded view of it, and then all those come into drawing sheets at different times in order, and we start with the largest part and work our way down, and we get it all put in there so it's in a logical order so somebody can work off it. Now, I'm going to go through here some of our sketches for our earlier stuff. This is kind of where your notebook should look like at this point. We did our pen design pieces. We did some brainstorming there. I got lots of notes on various things. Lots of stuff going on here. But we're going to move our way down here. Eventually, I hope we get to this project if we get to the quarter. But what I want to do is get to the next page right here. And that is a blank page. Why is it a blank page? Because I want to talk about actual sketching right now. So if I'm laying this out, I don't sit and think and work with a list all the time. I number my page. You'll notice my previous page was, I believe, 15. So this will be 16. Nope, previous page was 17. So I'm going to go up here, number my page. I have no problem with using a straight edge, guys and girls. I usually bring a straight edge in and mark in straight lines if I can to work off of. And this will be called my, in all honesty, this is my student invention assignment. It's actually project 60.1. That's a 6, by the way. 10A, CAD Mechanical 1. Okay. So it goes in here and I start plugging in my numbers and I start working on it. I will start sketching. Like if I'm going to say, honestly, what's my most important thing I'm going to worry about right now? I want a pen case that holds all of my pens. I have lots and lots of drawing pens, Coptic markers, etc. So what's it going to be? Well, let's start out with that. Well, I know I've got to have in a line, whatever's going to be my most complicated view is going to be my front view. So I want one that I can easily stack up. And I'm going to eyeball this. You'll notice I'm just proportionally eyeballing. And I usually have who knows how many pens with me at times. I want this to be something I can just assemble and work with. Now, what view is the front view? The view that shows the absolute most detail. In this case, my most detail will probably be this one. That is the front view of the actual piece when it sits on the counter. And if I space this out right, I've got 3 up and I'm going to have at least 5, 6, 7 across. I'm looking at 21 possible pins in this. If I extend that out a little more, I can go higher. If I go up another row, I can get more in there. So actually that one's just going to be a solid end. So I'm looking at right now, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd go up probably, okay, pen mark. Probably 2 more rows at least. And I'm doing a front view only. Now let's talk about pens and pencils for a minute. Honestly, like I said before, I don't care what kind of paper you use. I also don't care what kind of pencils you use. It's up to you to decide what works best for you. Now, mine, in this case, I work with a pen because honestly, I want to commit to that line and own that line. If I mess up the line, oh well, I'll come back and trace over it and make it darker or fix it. I will look at it and say, okay, did I really mean to mark that there? Did I really mean to mark this over here? You'll notice sometimes I do some of my stuff light and then I'll come back in and darken it up. That's an old board thing I used to do with pencils. We used to burn in our markers, take our pens, and in old school board drafting, we take a pencil and we literally had to turn it like this as you drew. Okay, so as you're drawing a line and you're twisting it literally into the straight edge so that it keeps your pencil sharp for longer and it actually makes the line darker, and you go back and forth across it until you burn it into the paper. So I'm just going to kind of sketch some stuff out here and doodle it in. But it doesn't matter what you draw with. As long as you're making marks on paper and you're thinking it through and engaging your brain, this is a problem-solving situation. What do I need? How do I solve the problem? I've sketched this out. I've got some basic ideas. Now I start assigning proportions. I start assigning dimensions. I start figuring out how it's going to work for me when I'm actually done. I can absolutely go back and clean things up if I have an issue. Okay. It's all about the communication process. And like I said, it does not have to be perfect right now. This is your sketch. This is your idea. This is your brainstorming. This is where your brain gets its exercise right now. If you solve the problems on paper, when you go to model this, the problems will be solved. Like looking at this is not going to be really an injection molded type situation. It could be, but what happens if I want to make this and I want to post it somewhere where it can be folded flat if I'm not using it, or I want to manufacture it and I don't want to have this much space for it? Because honestly, if my pens are that long, that means my rack's got to be at least that long. Well, at least that long. Okay. And if I have 7 high of them, well, let's go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It'd be at least that wide. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'd be at least that tall. So I'm looking at a box that's basically that big and about this tall. Well, if I turn it sideways, it'd be this tall. So how am I going to make that fit? How am I going to inject it? I want to think through those things. How am I going to manufacture it? I'll have to figure those things out as I go. Engage your brain in the process. So as you're thinking through it, design process, work right now on the brainstorming, work right now on the research, and work right now on the sketching. And those all go into your sketchbook, your notes, and that's what you're going to turn in first to us, okay? Hey guys and girls, thanks. Stay on top of this. Watch out. It's really easy, straightforward stuff. And I want to see what you've got. Everybody's opinion is usually pretty good on this because you've had some experience or done something that nobody else has done, tried, or seen. So absolutely jump on and show us what you've got. Okay? Thanks.